Monster shop. I can't. My brain won't do it, mate. I can't do it. I can't. That bit there that's just come in.
The timey bit.
Can't do it.
The drummy
bit. My brain will not make sense of that.
You need the John Bonham doing the drums. I wonder when they did it if they did it. Oh, they did a lot of it live, didn't they?
Yeah.
This, but I wondered if they did it like whether he sang without the drums underneath it.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you were talking before we started about how obnoxious the timing is on this record and how weird and crazy.
Yeah, it hurts. It hurts my brain.
It's
like algebra.
So nothing wrong with algebra.
You get that beat.
I love algebra.
Welcome to the Monster Shop. I'm Chris.
I'm Neil. We're doing Led Zeppelin. We've been talking about doing this for ages.
Yeah. We actually said we were going to do Fat of the Land at some point as well.
This is probably when we should be doing Fat of the Land, isn't it? By Prodigy. How different record. It suddenly just hit me. Like how many podcasts out there? How many people do Led Zeppelin and Prodigy? We'll do Prodigy next week.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both massive, aren't they?
Yeah, of course they are.
Which brings me on to a thing, I guess a confession about this album that I, like as a teenager, I liked big, nasty, like Slayer and Exodus and Testament and Anthrax. And then just as I was rolling out of that, I went into Swedish death metal. Yeah. And all through that, I was listening to Bolt Thrower and Napalm Death. And, do you know what I mean? And the Brutal Truth. And this would have
been very cool.
I remember countless times sitting in the pub in Ashby de la Zouche. And there would have been an old man with a beard.
Yeah.
Telling me that I would have had my Brutal Truth t-shirt on. So many would have been saying, can't even read what that says.
Yeah.
Can't hear what they're singing.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Yeah.
What you want. And then he'd wander over to the jukebox and he'd put like Black Dog on.
Yeah.
Right. And then immediately I was like, get lost.
Lost with your old man music.
I will never listen to your old man Dire Straits and your Led Zeppelin. I will never ever listen to that. And it really weird. It's kind of really, I guess, like put me off it. And it probably like a decade later.
Yeah.
Do you know? And it would have been for me the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
And absolutely, I still remember it to this day, like absolutely falling in love with the Rolling Stones and just spending the entire day just going through the Rolling Stones back catalogue from the 60s and like a Beggar's Banquet and all. I just absolutely fell in love with it. And then building this, I don't know, this kind of love of that time, the music that came out of that time and how, I don't know, I guess how it came from a different era when like it felt like albums and music was treated differently. It wasn't free. It like today's albums and today's music is kind of very much I'll say it's not even a commodity, but it's a thing. It's a thing that you do to sell something else, right? It feels like the general public are kind of less bothered about the obsession that musicians go through. And back in the 60s and 70s was this kind of golden era for me where, an album was a big deal. Like this.
It was art.
Well, this particular album was in the front page press. It was in Melody Maker and it was in the music news. But the fact that Led Zeppelin were going to do a new album, that was like huge front page news. And where they were going to record
it. That's the Kardashians. That's the.
But
it's Beyonce. It's that. It's the way that the general public lap all of that up, or something to do with the royal family or whatever. The way they lap that up, That's what this was. These guys were rock stars. They were
actual rock stars.
They were really important to culture.
It's incredible. And I was reading. I've been at a children's party today, Chris, in Birmingham.
You survived the children's party.
I did. I dropped off the child.
Yeah.
And then I went. You'll be really proud of me. I ran around the corner, and there was a HMV.
Yeah.
And I didn't buy any records.
Really?
I picked 3 records up.
That surprises me.
And then I thought, if I buy these, Chris is going to take the piss. So I put them back. And then I went and sat in a coffee shop.
What were they, just out of interest?
I found Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood.
Yeah.
This one, Led Zeppelin IV.
Oh, yeah.
Or Untitled, as it's officially called. And what was the other one? It was the repress of Appetite for Destruction, because I've got the original of that, but I've not got the repress.
So you want two? You obviously want two. Yeah. One isn't good enough. You want one more.
No. I got one to look at. But I didn't. So I put them back. But I went and sat in the coffee shop, right? So I'm sitting in the coffee shop, and I thought I'll
HMV.
No, around the corner from there. I forgot what it was. One of the
Star. They do Waterstones sometimes, don't they?
I don't know. It was a Starbucksy costume. I didn't even look. I just walked to the thing and said Earl Grey. And then I sat in the corner.
Lady Grey.
Yeah, Lady Grey, please. And I sat in the corner and I was reading about the album art. I'm starting to look at doing this blog about album art. And I thought, I wonder who did it and I wonder who got involved in it. So I'm reading about it. And the first article that I found started to talk about how the record label told the band they couldn't do it. So that essentially they said that releasing an album with no distinguishable marks, so he didn't say Led Zeppelin anywhere on it. The album itself didn't have a title, and the band just came up with these runes, these symbols,
that represented each member of
the band. And literally all they did, the record label, wanted to do big thing. They wanted to do posters and all this stuff. And in some of the music, I think it was in Melody Maker, they put the symbols on there, but it didn't say anything else. It's literally imagine like a quarter page, imagine like a full page, and a quarter of that is just a blank white square with the symbol in the middle. It doesn't say anything else, so no one knew what they were.
Oh, that's cool, isn't it?
It's just really cool. And I read that the band were like railing against the music press that were still giving them, because the band really struggled with the press.
They weren't taken seriously.
No.
Sorry, this is my thing. Going through the interviews, because we obviously put in these we rip these interviews from YouTube and put them in the show. Listening, the people doing the interviews, they don't take them seriously.
No, they don't.
And then you hear the record and you go, these are the best musicians around.
Yeah, but
you don't see that. You just see kind of like misbehaving naughty boy rock star.
They were misbehaving. They were really bad behaving. Led Zeppelin were, but yeah, it's incredible. And they were reacting to the press saying bad things about them. And they've got, and we've not got any in here, but there's some lovely clips on YouTube about them literally arguing with interviewers.
Yeah.
Where the interviewer will say something like, you're not very good, are you? Or why did you choose to do this? Or why did you not do that? And the band reacting, really defensively, which I don't know.
It sort of fueled it, maybe.
Yeah, but we talked about this last week, where there's this the rock stars. You kind of assume that they're just, they're not questioning themselves. But when you see that, it's just phenomenal.
Picking them apart and
stuff, to see them reply back with just this, so we're just going to release the music and we're not going to say who it was. We're not going to say who it came from, and we're going to see if it sells. So let's remove us from the equation and let's see how the music does.
Well,
And it's I don't know.
Yeah.
Like today, you think, genius move.
Yeah.
But imagine at the time, I don't know. I just think it's phenomenal.
Yeah. And that's the thing you forget is the world at the time.
Led
Zeppelin, kids wear Led Zeppelin shirts now. They might not have even heard a song, but they wear their shirts because it's cool. And they weren't for a while, were they? There was a thing where I think maybe all of these kind of legendary artists go through this, but there's a point in time where they're not the zeitgeist, and there's a generation of musicians that have sort of railed against whatever that thing was. Which is the big kind of metal stuff in this case that you were talking about earlier. But what you have got is when you let go of that and discard that, and you listen to this record as a piece of art, because that's why as soon as I listen to it, I'm like, this isn't just music to me. This record is art. And if you'd have, I mean, Dan Baker, who I talk about probably every week,
he's not real.
Led Zeppelin are one of his favourite bands, and Jimmy Page is one of his favourite all-time guitarists from when he was a kid. Wow. It was quite an inspiration for him.
I never knew that.
No, and he'd talk about Jimmy Page with reverence,
of course,
as a guitar player, and I'd be like, I don't really know what the fuss is made, to be honest. I heard him play live once; it was all right.
All right.
And then you listen back to this, and you go, remember that it was at the time. Remember, it was a long. It wasn't.
Yeah,
of course they're not going to do what Nuno Betancourt does,
no.
or like Steve Vai or whatever. It's not that kind of thing. And then you go back and you listen to the stuff and you think, no, this guy has this guy, because I think Jimmy Page was almost a bit of an orchestrator of the group.
Yeah,
a little bit, really.
I think you're right.
It's almost like he's got the roadmap of how this whole piece of art works. He's got the kind of full canvas, if you like, and he's putting the paint where he wants it, and he's, and all the members of the band are contributing, doing their bit and fulfilling their role. But it's almost like, it feels to me like Jimmy Page is almost like just kind of eking it out of everybody a little bit, and he kind of knows the map, knows the way it's going to go. And there's a little bit we're going to do later, which is him talking through Stairway, and it's exactly that. He knows right from the start how this thing's got to come together, what it's got to do with kind of a whole piece of art, and everyone's going to contribute to it in particular ways.
The vision.
I think he was kind of the main producer. Would you say producer?
He was he was.
I think there were people around that maybe engineered, but he had this vision of what this thing needed to be.
He's credited as the producer for, I think, all the Zeppelin albums.
Right, okay,
I think
okay. I didn't know that, see, so that's,
I mean, he had there were engineers. In fact, there's some lovely bits from his engineers where that clash of his vision against what the engineers were doing at the time.
Because there's a lot of unconventional things, particularly the Levee Breaks and the drum recording. Yeah. So the drum recording was, and it's quite famous now, but it was this thing in a stairwell. Yeah. And mics round it, and I don't know how much extra stuff they put on afterwards, but you can almost hear a delay. Yeah. On it, like it's got a delay on it.
Well, it's going to be,
but it's got reverb. You can hear the room.
You get the delay. Yeah. Just because of how long it takes the sound. Yeah. In a big space, you kind of get that automatically. The thing that I think is difficult right now is that was so impactful, everyone copied it. Yeah. So now when you talk about it, it's like, oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, it's like not a big deal. But at the time, to do something like that was phenomenal, and to focus on drum sound. Yeah. The drums were just the drums. I mean, I say this, but if you listen to the Beatles albums, without getting strung up by all the Beatles fans, but the drums don't have that same focus. So to give up that the focus on the production and the sound of the drums to make them do that. Yeah, the same is to be said across the whole album, I think, in the tone and the production. I mean, it's thin but of its time, right? So it's not super thick and 20 layers of guitars. And the drums, like John Bonham's drumming, there's so many like flourishes and details to it, but at no point do you feel any one instrument overpowering another.
Perfectly balanced, isn't it?
And it's phenomenal to me, because you don't some records, when you listen to them, you can hear, especially when I think you've read a lot about it and you spent time, I guess, analysing albums, you can see when the producer's ducking stuff, and you think, they're pulling that down so they can hear this and that, and you think, oh, that's clever, and this album for me, you don't.
No, everything's got its own space.
Yeah, you don't, but it feels really organic. You don't feel like somebody's been in there with a fader and gone, oh, I'll move that down, and I'll move. You know what I mean? It kind of feels like it was just meant to be. It was, that nobody's mucking around with faders and stuff, but everything's got its time in the limelight, if you like.
So. There's another really interesting thing about this, and the first is Headley Grange, it's called, isn't it? The place
Headley Grange was the house. They
lived in this like albums we've covered before, which I love. I'm gonna have to do this at some point. Is hire a house and record it, I think.
But that was isn't that because you've spent time at Rockfield, haven't you?
Yeah, Rockfield's a
residential.
Yeah, but that's you've got a place where you live, if you like, for a bit, and then a place where you then a studio where you record. Right. And there's a couple of complexes there. Okay, yeah. And there's a few residential studios that are like that. Yeah. Where they've got accommodation and a studio on the same side. Yeah. But it feels very much like this was they're in the house, and then they're finding the right spaces in the house to do the things. Well, this
was another one where they used the Rolling Stones mobile recording studio, this kind of van full of gear, if you like, on coasters or casters that they just kind of rolled around. Yeah. It's interesting in the interviews hearing them talk about previous albums where it was in hotels. Yeah. And they said it felt like a conveyor belt. So you would get there into the studio, hotel.
Yeah.
Studio, hotel, studio, and it just is this kind of repetition, and it was quite structured, and to have them in the house together where you said it feels really organic, where stuff is happening, but it's not planned, it's it's just like, I'm in the mood. And you would go into the rehearsal space and somebody would be working on something, so it would just be really haphazard that somebody was working on something and somebody else would come and sit next to them and develop that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think it really shows through to me. This does in for this record particularly.
And the other thing that got me, just before we dive into a couple of interviews, is I had so much I wanted to say about this record. It's really strange, isn't it? Yeah. Is the idea that I had it in my head.
Yeah.
That particularly when you're thinking about Stairway and the ones that are really lush sounding on it. That there's loads of like other musicians and session players, and like someone comes in and does orchestration and all that.
Yeah,
it isn't.
No,
it isn't. It's John Paul Jones with some recorders.
Yeah, I love the fact they chose a recorder. It's like the least cool, one of the biggest rock and roll bands to ever walk the planet. Just, I know, stick a recorder on it. Yeah,
but because I thought it was a Mellotron, I've always thought that was a Mellotron, and it's not. It's real live recorded
actual recorders.
Recorders, yeah.
There you go. Slipknot are going to get recorders out next,
but it's them. It's just the band. There's I don't think there are any external players on it. I don't think. Is there a couple of vocalists maybe?
There is somebody just backing vocals.
Yeah, I was going to say there might be an extra vocalist, but I think in general it's all kind of done by the band. And this is the thing, is that Jimmy Page was a kind of studio stalwart, wasn't he? He was someone who understood the process, who he kind of knew the full works really, and I think that shows when this band, I suppose, he's almost kind of got the control of it, hasn't he? He's almost running the thing through.
I think so, yeah. So the artist I was looking for was Sandy Denny.
Sandy Denny.
She does backing vocals on it.
Yeah.
I think she's the only.
Yeah.
I don't think they were very tight as a band. I don't think they brought other people in.
I always had it in my head that it was like, the Stones thing where they go to Abbey Road and then they've got all the Abbey Road string guys that come in to do the stringy bits and and there's none of that. There's none of that.
I don't think so. I'm just looking for I can't find anything that they've done. I think that was on a studio album. I think that's it. I think it was just them. Yeah,
capturing them.
Just her.
So I think it's probably the first person to sort of listen to is Robert Plant.
Yeah.
And there's one interview that I've carved into three, and I think it's just worth listening to each bit, because one is talking about the sort of development and lead up to the band, and then the other part about kind of being in the band and what the band's about and that sort of thing. And I just think he speaks about it in a really interesting way.
Let's listen.
I was drawn to the lights because I came, like so many kids out of my generation in Britain, we came from a kind of very grey post-war, the kind of the residue of a lot of pain and strife. So I suppose kids in the mid-50s in Britain were just starting to wake up after the, parents coming back from the war, or, being attracted to the footlights and the entertainment and the smell of a venue and the kind of the anticipation in a crowd. I loved that. I thought that was an amazing thing, because I've been a music fan and a fan of all things that are interesting and occasionally unique all my life. So I'm always a member of the audience and an entertainer.
And there's people like him all around. There's like Robert Plant, Iggy Pop, Alice Cooper. They're people that love it. Whether they were doing it or not, they'd still be huge lovers of music, regardless.
I when I was shooting gigs a lot, I would be in
with the camera.
I'd be in Rock City a lot, and then you kind of come out of that, and I would be, because you're doing it a lot. The car park would get really busy, and I don't want to spend 45 minutes sitting in the car, so I would kind of hang around right at the end and almost run to the car. And just as I was getting in the car, because of the curfew at Rock City, was when Alice Cooper's show came on Planet Rock. So I would almost always head back to Alice Cooper, and he was it reminds me hugely actually of Joe from Def Leppard.
Right.
They've both got this absolute passion for music, and their knowledge is phenomenal. So not only would they have these incredible stories about people, they would also, I guess, expose you to music that you was prior to your generation, right? We talked about music that influenced us, and we talk about that teenage effect, right? So the music that's big and popular when you're a teenager, that's the stuff, that's your stuff. But what I think is incredible is discovering the stuff that's out of your generation. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense.
And
it's never there, is it? It's later on. It's later on you get to it. You come back to it. I certainly have done with Led Zeppelin.
I want to ask you a question as well.
Yeah.
Do you know Wayne's World?
Yes.
Wayne's World.
What year, Stairway Tonight.
What year was it?
1993.
1992. But it just hit me that 1992 for me was right in the middle of
the big hair metal thing.
Was for me, that was in my teenage peak.
I see.
Right. So the music that came out probably between like 86 and 90. 95 probably like 93, 94, like that was the stuff that's really influential.
So I see.
Wayne's World came out in that time, so that was a big thing. I really remember it clearly. And I remember them like making fun of Stairway there. And you know what I mean? It was that.
It's strange, isn't it? Because it's one of those ones where
it's that overplayed. It was. I read about it this morning, and it was the reason it was in there was this kind of overplayed. It was, it was played over and over. And it made me think. And I've posted a few.
But they revere
Queen,
Bohemian Rhapsody. Which is strange. Which is almost like it defeats itself, doesn't it?
Comedic, wasn't it? But I posted a few times this week about this, and it's, does something being overplayed diminish shit somehow, right? Does it have that effect? Because like for me, discovering Led Zeppelin late, I feel actually quite I didn't hear this being overplayed, to be honest. None of this stuff for me was stuff that was played when I was as a teenager. My mum would have played this, and Queen. And,
but what you do is you inherit the perception that it was.
Yes.
And then that almost tarnishes your experience of it. So we're going to play Stairway in a bit.
It's lovely, isn't it?
What you got to do is just do a quick, like 2 or 3 minute meditation before. So pause the podcast and then do that. Get that idea out of your brain. Do that. Stop the judgment. Stop the worry, and all preconceptions of Stairway to Heaven. Let go of, and just listen to how incredible it is.
Made me think. What is the most overplayed? I mean, like, for me, it would probably be like would be something from Guns N' Roses, probably.
Sweet Child of Mine.
Knocking on Heaven's Door. It'd be something like that. I think that was just everywhere. Alanis Morissette, probably. They were, but that stuff that would have been played in the late 80s and early 90s for me, and that, like for you, probably a bit later. Would have been a bit later. But it's funny, isn't it?
It is funny.
And then, like, tell you the Black Album for me. That's probably like, Enter Sandman and stuff. There for me is like super. When I hear Enter Sandman, I kind of cringe a bit. I'm like, just make it stop. And it's a great song. But it's just
exactly.
This and so Stairway for me, it's not overplayed. No. I know people say it is, and it was probably. But it's not for me. I really, for me, like discovering some of this stuff. It's, I don't know, I feel we're a bit privileged.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Yeah. So the next part of the it was the same interview thing. Is Robert Plant talking about the experience of being in Led Zeppelin, and that's really cool because you get the you get the idea that it's rock stars and it's mucking about and it's all that, but actually they really care about their craft as well. I think that that what we were saying earlier, the media didn't get that bit, and they didn't communicate that. They were really serious about their music.
The best of it is that our time initially, when the whole thing was opening up, was there were no charts, there were no maps, there was no structure, there was no conditioning. We were flying by the seat of our pants into this thing. There were many people around us, especially from the Bay Area, San Francisco. There were fantastic bands, musical units, but there was no etiquette developed yet. The last thing we were was a good bet to have on a talk show or anything like that. It was a time to be proud of our music, and also now that I know the way that everything's gone, look where we are, in Warner Brothers, the home of Once Upon a Time, Atlantic Records and all the great stuff. There were no rules. Things were being developed, and the journey, nobody could plot it. It was just, what do we do now? Oh, maybe we'll play somewhere bigger. It was just like kids going from playing in the youth club behind the church to playing small clubs. The acceleration into another place was crazy.
Interesting about the experience of being a part of that world is because it's a different age, it's a different era, it's a long time ago, and I don't know. I wonder if he sits now and thinks back, because he's obviously been out of the Led Zeppelin thing, doing his other things.
Yeah, of course.
Longer than he was probably in Led Zeppelin doing the Led Zeppelin thing.
Yeah.
I always think about that to do with like Paul McCartney and
people
like that as well, where it's like, well, really, that Beatles thing was a very, very short period of time. His life. Yeah. And he's done a lot of other stuff since then.
I'd not thought about it like that, but you're right.
But the Stones is the other way around. Stones is like that's what they've done. That's it. That's
forever. Yeah.
I mean, Mick Jagger's gone off and done a few things. Keith Richards been in some pirate films, but the but they've always done the Rolling Stones thing, and that's been their life. Whereas obviously, I think maybe it was the death of John Bonham that finished Led Zeppelin. That was the kind of thing.
Yeah, that was
hard to replace him.
Was it 1980? I think
I
it was.
don't know. I'm not
but yeah,
sure.
I think that's what I've read about over the past week or so. I've been preparing for this. That's kind of what put
that was the thing.
That kind of ended them as a band. But it's the influence and the impact of the band. So the albums that came out, but it's of the band themselves and the things that they did, and the impact that they had on the bands that kind of came after and were doing stuff. You've got to say that you've almost got like the bad boy rock and roll stuff, and that surely influenced like the Twisted Sisters and the Motley Crues, and that they grew up on Led Zeppelin, and so idolizing that the band and that focus that they had on an album and what they were doing. Probably Black Sabbath too, I would have thought.
What was the podcast we did a couple of weeks ago where it was about the band coming from America to go to the home of Led Zeppelin and the home of these bands that they was looked up to so much. Who was that?
Oh, I can't remember who it was, but it was one of the big hair bands, wasn't it? Like Love Hate?
I think it was.
It was sort of Faster Pussycat.
It was one of those two. Yeah.
One of the two. Yeah. But you're right.
Where it was that they wanted to come and see the world of Britain, the world like whereas the others are going, let's go to California,
let's go to the Strip.
Let's go and go to the what's it called? Pussycat Club. Is that what it's called?
No, it was called the Cat House.
Cat House, that's
the
it.
Cat
Sorry,
House.
Cat, but I don't know where we got that from. That's somewhere else I've been.
Everyone's Googling the Pussycat Club now, raising their eyebrows, going, oh.
But the thing about that is they were that as you've said though, those bands from that era absolutely like worshipped Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and the Who and bands like that.
It's hard. I think it's kind of hard to imagine a universe without it. It's one of those. Can I do some facts?
Yes.
I've not got that. Well, I've got some facts. I'll do some. I've not got that many facts. So it was released on 8th of November 1971, untitled, which we've discussed the record company were not approving of.
No.
The genre. What genre is it?
This is the problem, you see, because what I hear is blues, folk,
yeah,
rock, prog.
Yeah.
They're the four genres that I hear.
Yeah.
But Led Zeppelin is constantly called metal.
Heavy metal.
And it's not.
It's not even close to heavy. Black Sabbath heavy metal.
Yeah.
This was not even close. I don't think even close to heavy metal. I would describe it as kind of hard. It's hard rock and blues.
Yeah, but there's folky stuff in there as
it
well.
It is.
That's the bit for me. You listen to this Led Zeppelin IV and you go, well, that's a folk song. That's a folk song with a couple of heavy bits.
They were criticised, weren't they, for Led Zeppelin III for too much acoustic stuff, and people said they were copying other bands that were popular at the time. But yeah, so genre-wise,
there's not many people better than him, Jimmy Page, to do that though. That kind of really picks.
Yeah,
like 12-stringy stuff and the mandolin stuff and
it's
all that.
It's kind of twangly, jangly.
Yeah, yeah.
It's got a beautiful sound
It's
to
awesome.
it. I guess the point is that the genre for Led Zeppelin is they're just not.
No.
Just not.
No.
Just not genre for
they're almost like early Queen without the pop stuff.
Yeah,
a little bit with a kind of searing American vocalist.
Of another band where you can't genre them. They're not. You don't.
No,
it's like a box. It's like you can't draw a box around them.
No.
Yeah,
but what I do hear with Led Zeppelin is a group of British lads
very British.
Playing American music. That's what it feels like to me.
Oh, that's a really. I was like, their tone's very British. You can tell it. You can tell it's been produced in a country house in England. The production of it is, but yeah, that's really interesting.
They've got that American. He sings with the American accent. There's the
Americana kind of
the sort of rock and roll blues kind of thing.
There's
a lot of that.
I hadn't thought of it like that.
Yeah. Sorry.
Go on.
I was going to say you're in facts mode. I'm going off somewhere else.
It's short, 42 minutes, which we've discovered is the best type of albums. 8 songs, 42 minutes. The best albums are short.
Yeah.
You don't want to be. I'm not a big fan of the long.
Definitely doing a double album, mate.
You're going to do like Melancholy, aren't we? We're going to still be listening in a week later. I don't think I've ever listened to Melancholy from start to finish.
No.
Ever.
Not even one side. Not even one.
Oh
half.
Yeah. I would have listened to half, but not the whole thing.
No,
not the whole thing from end to end.
No.
It's too long. I've fallen asleep, or I've had to eat or something in between. It was released on Atlantic Records, but they didn't pay for it.
Oh, really?
The band paid for it because they didn't want the pressure of the record label.
That's crazy.
Well, that's why they were able to do it with. With
label says, can't do that. We're paying for it.
Yeah, basically.
Do what we want.
Yeah, screw you. We do what we want.
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Recorded at Headley Grange.
Yeah.
It was also recorded at Island Studios.
Where is Headley Grange then?
Oh, I don't know. It's a good question.
Is it a Cotswoldsy type sort of place? Do you reckon?
I don't know. I feel like I should know that, and I don't.
Well, when we do the next interview, we shall Google it and find out.
We'll forget. By that far.
It'd be nice to go there, wouldn't it?
One of us will need to go to the toilet as well in the next break. And so.
Someone's doing a Headley Grange tour, aren't they? That's got to be a thing, surely.
You reckon?
Yeah, this is where John Bonham did his. I know
they do Gavin and Stacey. They do Gavin and Stacey tours of Thingamabob, the island, the Barry Island. For our American,
I've never seen Gavin
for our American listeners, of which there are many, according to our stats. Gavin, just look up Gavin and Stacey on the YouTube. It's got
James Corden's in it.
It's got James Corden, who we're still a bit disappointed that you've sent back. Has he come back?
Yeah.
I don't like. I preferred it when he was in America. Produced by Jimmy Page.
Yeah. So is he sole producer?
I think so. Yeah.
Wow. So I had probably had people about doing the buttons.
Yeah, he had lackeys doing. He would shout at people, "Go and do tapes." Sold 37 million
huge, isn't it?
copies.
That's huge.
37 million of anything is a lot. 37 million like Smarties.
Yeah.
That's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
37 million albums. 37 million people went to a record store and decided they were going to buy it.
Yeah.
Which is utterly insane.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
And they had no advance to pay back.
No,
they had no advance to pay back for the making of that record.
Don't think so.
So that
from what I read, the record company put it out.
Yeah,
but very much reluctantly. Yeah, they were like, "This isn't going to sell. Not going to go anywhere. You've got a stupid record cover.
Yeah,
you've got stupid runes. Well, I mean, you're all stupid. You can just imagine like a cigar, sitting back in his chair, and stupid boys, stupid long hair with his stupid jangly guitars. Do you know what I mean? And they, but they wanted hits. They wanted a whole lot of Rosie. You know what I mean? And they. So I read they were not impressed at the time, and the band just told them to get lost.
Yeah.
which I really like.
Well, imagine that. We're not going to finance this one. We'll do it then.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I also hadn't realised, and probably people are going to scream at me for this one because this is not on my fact sheet, but it's something that I read earlier. But the band came from the Yardbirds.
Yeah.
And then just kind of got, I'll bring my mates in and kind of carry on when the Yardbirds ended. I mean, it is before like my time. I'm 50 this year, so for those of you a bit older, this is probably common knowledge. But I didn't know that. It wasn't something I. Yeah,
and I know I keep talking about Jimmy Page quite a lot, but he was always around the studios of that era. So even if he wasn't in the band, chances are we'd have played on loads of stuff that we wouldn't realise.
I love that of the. This is common with the Stones, where they were just random people in the studio playing stuff, and there's no credit anywhere. No. But there'll be an interview of Mick Jagger saying, oh yeah, we had he
was next door. Sting was down the road.
Yeah, so he just came in and did singing or playing or whatever. And it's just, I love that kind of ether. The same thing happens in a lot of scenes. Yeah. When you've got like the thrash stuff in the Bay Area. There's tons of
people just muck in.
Yeah, where they were just people in the studio playing, and they'll have played like the drummer on an entire song will be not the album, not the band drummer, and it won't be in the credits, won't be anywhere. It'll just be he was there, so
you put that down.
I absolutely love all that. Mixing desk is credited as a Helios console, which is a new one on me. I'm not familiar with Helios.
That they've got a really vibey.
And then it's a manual. It must have been manual. 1971.
On the stuff that I've got, the UAD stuff. I've got your Helios preamps and stuff.
Compressors is down on my fact sheet as a Universal Audio 1176.
I thought that came a bit later. I'm not sure.
It's a bit. I wouldn't have assumed much compression was on this. It doesn't feel very compressory. The track When the Levee Breaks had Bonham's kit in the mansion stairwell, and the mics dangled all over the place, which is
stuff of legend, isn't it?
It is. It's so I guess copied now.
But it wasn't then, was it? That's as you said, that's the thing, is that was a totally like mad thing to do.
Album sales, Led Zeppelin 1 15.8 million, Led Zeppelin 2 21.9 million, Led Zeppelin 3 13.7, and this is when the press were giving them a hard time. You've copied and blah 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 blah. 13.7 million, still a lot. Do you know what I mean? If anybody listened to this is in a band and you suddenly said, do you know what? I'll buy 13.7 million albums off you. You'd snatch their arm off. But the press at the time were giving them a hard time for that. Led Zeppelin IV, 36.8 million copies. Houses of the Holy, 17.7. Physical Graffiti, 13.4. Here, a lot of people have a bad perception of Physical Graffiti.
Other way around.
I quite like it.
Yeah, I think people who are musicians love it. It's their favourite.
Right, that's really interesting.
Of all of them.
That's really interesting. But I quite like it. I saw some negative comments online when we posted about it a couple of months ago. And then the album sales.
Double record.
I don't know. No, I don't.
I don't know.
This album, so Led Zeppelin 4, 23 times platinum certification from the RIAA, which is bonkers. Induction into the Grammy Hall of Fame.
But you can see why with those numbers, why Stairway would have got that
radio play,
the radio play, but also that reputation of it's too big, it's too commercial, it's too popular, it's too overplayed, it's too when you talk about those numbers.
Can I talk about other albums that were released in 1971?
Go for it.
Aqualung by Jethro Tull,
great album.
Sticky Fingers by the Rolling Stones,
great album.
Who's Next by The Who.
Wow.
And Imagine by John Lennon.
Oh my gosh.
And
that's a big year, isn't it?
Masters of Reality by Black Sabbath. It's just nuts, isn't it? That time, there are magical. I mean, every year there's great records being released, and I think just some years have got. I don't know,
just something in the water that year.
71, just crazy. Bits that I think are fantastic. some of the stuff is legend, really, but Black Dog was inspired by a black dog wandering around the studio like a black Labrador.
Really?
And you just think, what?
Yeah.
Because you assume it's
the depression thing or something.
Yeah. But so I read it was inspired. So Robert Plant's lyrics were inspired from an actual black Labrador, which is pretty cool. They shunned standard media afterwards, so there was a whole bunch of standard promotion that the record label would typically like them to do, and the band didn't do any of it. They were known for.
So that's why they've got the mythos.
That's
why they've got the
possibly
the kind of mythical status, because they didn't go out and do it.
They had a really fractious relationship with the press and the media, so they just chose not to do it. So there were all these things where, if you got a new album out, you had to go on talk shows and you had to go and do all these things, and they just hated it, so they didn't do it. And they were just like, we're just going to go on tour. Yeah. And that's what they did. They toured more and bigger and better, and that's what they did. They were just like, well, people want to see us, then we'll show it to them. Yeah, they can come and see us. We're not going to go and listen, not going to go and have some interviewer, ask us stupid questions. Which and it shows some I say confidence. I think it's almost an integrity. It's kind of like, that's not what we do. We're not going to do that. And so they chose not to. What did I get to down here as well? The media and television. So
that was another one, isn't it? That you don't hear Led Zeppelin hardly anything, but
famously
there was an immigrant song that was used on School of Rock, which was like a
tiny clip of it used on there. So historically, it was really carefully licensed.
Yeah,
it was on Wayne's World,
right,
in 1992.
Yeah,
but the next one
was that rock and roll.
Stairway to Heaven.
Of course, because it's in the storyline to the film, isn't it?
Now, since like 2010-ish. So rock and roll was used on a Cadillac commercial apparently in 2003, which was it's a real outlier.
Yeah.
But then from 2010-ish, you've seen a few. So Black Dog was used in Argo.
Yeah.
When the Levee Breaks is used right at the end of The Big Short.
Oh right.
And then, like you say, Immigrant Song as well. So they
let it go a bit. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, but I think kind of similar to the Pink Floyd boys, it's just like, I've had enough.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm fed up of people asking, just do what you want. And I kind of get the feeling like they've just gone, pay somebody, you deal with it. You deal with it, make sure we get paid. I don't want to have the conversation anymore. It's that, when you stop wanting to have the fight, isn't it? Really? So the reviews were interesting. I think looking back now, the reviews are all like 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, best album in the world ever. At the time it wasn't. At the time there was still critique. It was still mostly positive, but if you go back and have a look in the Wayback Machine, so if you search now for like what these the music press said about it, super positive, and lots of, I guess, modern magazines have written about it.
Yeah.
But at the time, it wasn't quite as popular. There was critique.
And I think it wasn't accepted as much.
I think it was partly to do with the fact that they just shunned the media.
Yeah.
And they were just like, we're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
So the media are like, we talked about this with Def Leppard as well, where when there was that one journalist who was angry because he felt they were best mates, and then they went to the US and got really popular. When they came back, he'd been writing all of these hit pieces saying they've sold out and they're terrible. I think that was there was definitely an element of that here where where the band just had this really bad relationship with the media in general. Remasters and reissues, it was
there's quite a few of these bits and bobs, isn't there, for these?
Yeah, the big one was in 2014 where it kind of got redone, where there's some alternate mixes on there, unreleased tracks,
like a deluxe edition thing.
And super deluxe box sets and all of that stuff. But and it's not terrible, I think is. But I think for some of these, like 1971, obviously done to analog tape.
The
masters and stuff that were taken from that would have been of the time,
Yeah.
right? And so the chance to go back and pull that media off the tape, probably for one last time, right? To pull it off those studio masters and get them into to Pro Tools or whatever. I like that. And I don't think they ruined it. I'm sure people are screaming at their the wireless sets about that, but I'm not. I don't like remasters. I'm not a big fan of it. But
You've not said that before.
I think they did an all right job.
Yeah.
They have. Do you know who else does? Just a brilliant job of this stuff. And that is
Wilson.
Stephen bloody Wilson, who stole our idea for a podcast. But yeah, Stephen Wilson does a lot of this stuff, doesn't he? Who does he do? Famously, he's worked with.
He definitely did a lot of the Jethro Tull stuff.
Jethro Tull, I think he's really, he's got that feel for this of just how far you push a remaster and without it sounding like. Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah.
Do you know where I'm going with that? Yeah. We should talk about Greta Van Fleet as well. And that's it, really. That is everything I've got on my fact sheet. I do want to talk about Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah. Do we do that now or do that in a bit?
What do you think?
Because I wanted to talk about Robert Plant's voice a little bit.
Oh, yes. I'd like to talk about that as well, because he talks about that in the interview.
Yeah.
Shall we listen to him talking about it, then we can talk about it, then we can talk about the Greta Van Fleet.
Well, the thing is, a voice is not going to... It's a muscle. It's a funny shaped thing anyway. And I had a lot of trouble with my voice along the line. I was in Australia once, in Melbourne. I remember waking up and we'd sold out a kind of some huge stadium. The stage was on wheels, so they got it so that if we had 10,000 people, that was fine. But if it was 12, they could wheel the stage back with a tractor pulling it, and then back and then back and then back. And as the day went on, more and more people arrived and I couldn't speak. And I went to a doctor and he hit me with some adrenaline and stuff like that. And I turned several shades of different colors and slid down the wall, covered in perspiration, and sang the gig. Now that's the last thing a singer needs to do. The damage that you can do. One time I went to see a voice specialist in London, in Harley Street. He was pretty highbrow. He had a desk with a little button underneath, so that as you walked in, he hit the button and the curtains all closed around you, and he had a kind of dish on his head and put a camera down my throat, and he said in 6 months' time your voice won't even be able to show signs of surprise. He said, it's over. And that was 28 years ago. So, the number of times you think you've had it, you think it's gone, and there's quite a lot of singers who were so hard on themselves that they did lose it forever.
Yeah, the thing is, you hear about people like over time, you've got those big, powerful rock vocalists like Bono, John Bon Jovi, Elton John, even. Who've had like medical issues with their voice and struggled with it in some way. And you just think he's Robert Plant still, I don't know if he's still wailing quite so much, because as he was back then, he's probably not quite got the range, but I think he's still doing it, isn't he?
Such a unique voice, I think. And you're right. There are these vocalists that they feel inimitable.
Yeah.
Which is where Greta Van Fleet come in, I suppose. But they do. They feel. Do you know what I mean? If you were to go back to the 70s and 80s, there were probably a lot of people trying to imitate. His voice.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone managed.
You can't. Not that range.
It's phenomenal.
The guy can get right up there. Even rock and roll. There's a few times where I've tried to play and sing that, and it's right at the top of my register. I'm really squawking to get at it.
Squeaking it out. But you're right, and I think age kind of comes to us all, right? And it has that impact on your body, and your body changes. But we talked about John Bon Jovi, didn't we? In previous shows.
Someone said the other day about I think it was a response to one of our posts.
Oh, was it?
It's the first time I've heard someone say it, and they said these days is the best Bon Jovi album.
Yes. Yes, one of your favourites, isn't it?
Yeah. And I've never heard anyone say that before.
Songwriting album, isn't it?
It is very much a songwriting album. I bet they had a house for that one.
John Bon Jovi owns many houses. I really love the authentic and genuine way he dealt with his voice. It just kind of said, actually, this is what's happening. And so until we can solve it, they're trying to tour and trying to do things, and until we can figure this out, I don't know. I just think he nailed it. I think there's a point where I guess you can't keep doing the same things, and you got to deal with it, haven't you? But it's easy to say it, but when you're John Bon Jovi or when you're Robert Plant, that's you. That's your identity is wrapped up in that wailing that you do.
Yeah.
So when you can't do that anymore, you become useless, right? What are you if you're not that persona of that person? So I get it. I totally get why people, why vocalists struggle to come to terms with it. It's phenomenal. But,
it's a part of their thing, isn't it? Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Which does bring me on to Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating. I find it absolutely fascinating. On one hand, that enough time has gone by that a band can sound just like Led Zeppelin. They sound really, so similar to Led Zeppelin. But enough time has gone by that it's okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's a whole audience that are picking that up and they've never heard Led Zeppelin. They don't know that there is a Led Zeppelin. They don't know that they sound similar. And it struck me as I was thinking about how to talk about this today, as obviously preparing for the show, because there's also they're not unique in that, right? So there are various bands that sound like AC/DC.
Yeah.
And
they've clearly been influenced by and clearly care about their music and have replicated it in such a way.
Yeah,
but with a certain level of individuality and originality to make it unique to them.
Yeah, I guess the question I'd got was, is it intentional?
Yeah.
Was it the thing with Greta Van Fleet is there's so many unique elements to Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Right, from the musicianship to vocals, drumming, and Greta Van Fleet imitates almost all of them to me. Right, there is the probability of a band just forming and sounding like Led Zeppelin out of happenstance is just, oh really,
yeah.
And it just made me kind of think, well, is it? Now, malicious is the wrong word, right? But what's the driver behind it?
Yeah,
because when you listen to interviews, I remember this being put to Greta Van Fleet directly. They were kind of going, "No, there's no imitation. We're not even fans. We're not. That's we don't think we sound like Led Zeppelin at all."
Yeah. And then go back to the house and see the shrine.
Yeah, well, yeah. And who is it that sounds? I'm trying to think who is it that sounds like AC/DC. Oh God, who's it?
But there have been bands that have imitated the style of that era, and also the kind of hair metal era. So was it Airborne and Steel Panther?
That's it. Yeah, Airborne sound the AC/DC.
That sort of thing. Even the Darkness to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I was going to.
I know that's the kind of 80s, more 80s sort of era, but
Airborne are they're really interesting because they sound like AC/DC.
Yeah.
They make no bones about it. Yeah. They're like, we love it. We absolutely love AC/DC, and we wanted to be AC/DC, so that's what we did. And we wrote our own songs, and they sounded like AC/DC, and we, that's who we are.
Yeah.
That's our background. We idolized them, and that's who we are. And we love that music, and that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, so that's where we are.
Yeah.
And I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
I'm totally okay with that.
What it feels like you're getting at is there some level of stylistic intellectual property here where there's been a line crossed.
Maybe.
That's the sense that I'm getting in that if you acknowledge it, it's all right. But if you copied a song, you copied some notes, that's really frowned upon.
Yeah,
you get very told off for that, and you go to court and all that.
You do.
But you don't get it if it's stylistic. You don't get it if it's you sing like that person. You have a similar vocal style to them.
I think it's just for me. It's too close.
Yeah.
You know, and that, and I'm sure that people will have their own opinions either way. But for me, it was just this. I kind of thought they were a great band. If you listen to Greta Van Fleet, they're fantastic.
Awesome.
They're brilliant live.
Yeah.
And you just think, do something else. You know what I mean? Just do. You must have your own style in there somewhere. But the other thing that hit me actually as I was thinking about this was there's clearly still a demand for Led Zeppelin. If a band can sound like them and have a massive following and sell new albums and pack out events.
Police car.
Oh yeah, it is a police car.
No,
we've not had a police car for ages, have we?
I don't know if that'll come through the mics, but
it doesn't seem to get through anymore.
No.
Does it? But I think it just shows you the pent up demand for them. But I guess I don't know. I don't want to. I don't want to believe that they did it maliciously. Yeah. I know. Let's copy. We've got a singer who sounds a bit like Robert Plant. Let's totally copy the sound. Right? I don't want to be that guy. But
it's a bit close.
Is too close for comfort. What's next?
Right. Well, there's 2 interviews left.
Yeah.
And obviously the first ones were with Robert Plant.
Yeah.
And the second ones are with Jimmy Page.
Oh.
And there are 2. And I don't know what order to do them in, because one of them, the idea was that we'd play the interview and it's all about Stairway. And then we'd play Stairway so you could hear it afterwards.
Okay, yeah. Should we do that?
Should we do that now?
I like that.
Okay, let's do that now.
I've wanted to try to put something together which started with quite a fragile, exposed acoustic guitar playing in sort of style of a poor man's bourrée by Bach, that sort of aspect. As far as the instrumentation goes, there are going to be there's recorders to the early part which gives it sort of slightly medieval feel. That was an idea of John Paul Jones's to put the recorders on, and he played the recorders. When I actually had the idea for Stairway, that wasn't necessary. I wasn't thinking recorders. I was thinking more the texture of actually the electric piano. The idea of Stairway was to have a piece of music, a composition, whereby it would just keep unfolding into more layers and more moods, and actually the whole intensity of or subtlety and the intensity of the overlay of the composition would actually accelerate as it went through on every level, every emotional level, every musical level, and so it just keeps opening up as it continues through its sort of passage. This was during the period that we were at Headley Grange that the thing was put together. It was slightly complicated to be doing this whole thing without a vocal, because at the time there weren't any lyrics, and this was the backbone of what the song was intended to be, and the whole of the running order from the beginning to the end was sort of mapped out. It was tricky. It was a tricky thing to do because there's a lot of music and changes in it. I remember during that period, Robert was sort of sitting down, leaning against the wall, and he was just sort of writing. I won't never forget that image of him doing that. We do a run through of it from beginning to end with the guitar opening, as we all know, and then Robert comes up and starts to pitch in and sing. And I tell you, it must have been 90% of the lyrics were already done. One of the cardinal rules when I was a studio musician was that you didn't speed up. And I was keen to do something which had an acceleration to it, not only from the musical point of view, but from the lyricist, so that the whole thing would start to gain a momentum as it went through. So it wasn't just a monotone piece. And by that, I actually mean that it would subtly speed up. So you're breaking the #1 cardinal rule. The concept of the solo was to have something like a sort of fanfare. So it's a definite transition. It comes in with a fanfare to introduce this solo, and the solo is just going to soar right through. It was a very inspired time for all of us at the time that we were living in the Headley Grange as a residence, eating, sleeping, making music. That's what we were doing day after day after day. And it sort of tells when you hear the fourth album. But, you know, Stairway is a sort of byproduct of it, of all of that. But, you know, it's obviously been quite substantial as a milestone for Led Zeppelin. It was really an inspired period of time. It sort of shows that I think the lasting quality of this music over all these years is the fact that everyone's playing so honestly and with such conviction that it sort of shows.
There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold, and she's buying a stairway to heaven. When she gets there, she knows if the stores are all closed, with a word she can get what she came for. She's buying a stairway to heaven. There's a sign on the wall, but she wants to be sure, 'cause you know sometimes words have two meanings. In a tree by the brook, there's a songbird who sings. Sometimes all of our thoughts on this evening.
Oh, listen to that beautiful tape-is.
Oh, it's gorgeous, isn't it?
I didn't know about the tempo.
Oh, you
So
telling
obviously-
me we were discussing this before the show, weren't they? That the song speeds up.
Yeah.
It's
But you don't really notice
I'd
until
not
the last
noticed
bit.
it.
The last bit you kind of do.
it feels more energetic. So
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
got
yeah.
this kind of, the energy rises and gets more complicated, and you think, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
you know. But then when you said that it's a different tempo at the end to the beginning,
Yeah.
I'm like, it blows your mind a little bit.
Like miles off.
Yeah.
Miles different.
You just like,
yeah.
what?
So a good exercise for those who wish to. The first is listen to it with headphones on.
Yeah.
Because the use of stereo is incredible. The recorder's in your right ear.
Not a Mellotron.
Not a Mellotron, no.
Actual recorder. So if you're a teacher and you're teaching year 6 students,
Get them on this.
get the recorders out and get them on.
And the other bit is play it from start to finish and then restart it immediately.
Yeah.
So that you can hear that marked difference.
It wasn't until you
tempo.
said, "Have you ever done it?" And I thought, "No, I've never. I don't think I've ever just straight gone back again." And it's stark.
Unbelievable.
It's absolutely
unbelievable.
stark.
Like totally different. Yeah, different song really.
But
you don't notice it because it goes on such a journey. And I love that about
yeah.
Jimmy Page saying that was totally purposeful.
Yeah,
The whole thing was
planned.
Yeah.
You know, not just like played by feel.
Yeah.
But actually mapped out in his head and then executed like that is.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what makes him a bit of a genius. You know.
Yeah. The whole song's architecture. The whole song is. It's
But
great.
to have been architected, does that make sense? So that, you know, lots of songs like this. And I think Pink Floyd did this a lot. It was almost done by feel initially, and then that's where it's going, and then architected it, if you like. So it's like, you know, this to have been architected and designed and written, if you like, in his head, and then played.
Yeah,
I don't know. They're just mind-boggling that someone can have that vision in their brain and then be able to execute it. I just think it's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Production's really interesting on it as well. There are bits in there that are quite, if you listen to it with headphones, there are bits in there that are quite boomy on the acoustic, which a modern producer would have, do you know what I mean, totally swamped that. You know, you just wouldn't get it. You wouldn't get that kind of
but I think that I think there's a bit of that that's a bit purposeful because they're very overpowering.
It's like
actually.
bloomy almost. It's kind of this bit where it kind of almost drones on the kind of the deeper notes of the acoustic, which I think partly the room, possibly. I'm not sure, but a modern producer wouldn't get it. But it reminds me massively of some of the early Stones recordings where you can hear, not only can you hear the studio, you can hear people moving. Like you put your headphones on and there are people like picking things up and putting things down and moving. You can hear stuff happening in the studio. Now, a modern producer would have like Bob Rock could have, Mutt Lang would have got, cut all that out. But it gives you this connection
You're there,
to
you're
it.
in there with them.
It kind of feels like,
that's why I love it. I love little bits like that.
It's like authentic, isn't it? It gives you this, it puts you in that space, which, you know, I think modern music is missing. It really is. It's just so perfect. Everything is triggered and perfect and EQ'd and flat and clicked, and it's just, I don't know, there is just something super special about
That's not music, is it? That's not music. That's product.
Yeah. I mean, you say it's not. Yeah, but you say it's not music. I mean, it clearly is music. It's a different type, isn't it? From a different era and a different, you know, I guess appeals to different people. But you know, to me, there's just something incredibly special about this era of music. And you know, like for me, it's albums like this. It's like, you know, Beggar's Banquet and Let It Bleed, and there's that stuff that was happening around that time. Yeah, it's just incredibly authentic, and you probably never, as much as I was talking about Greta Van Fleet, you know, having a similar style. There's that authenticity is not the same because it's a different point in time. You know, it's different point in time. We didn't talk about the recording of the album of this album and the way a large part of it was done live.
It
wasn't like done layer after layer. You know, they would just all get together in the big room, and record. And I think you can hear that.
Yeah,
I think
you
for me, there's a
and there's a bit, and I can't remember if it was in the last one. I think it's in the next one, the Jimmy Page interview, which we'll play in a second, where he talks about Robert Plant. You know, all of these songs were mapped out and recorded without any vocals, not even a guide. So the music was down, and then Robert would be kind of writing the words as it was happening, and
yes.
So what the way I would ordinarily write a song is you'd write the song, you pop the lyrics on, and then you'd track it, and then during the tracking process, you put the basics down. You'd have a kind of vocal guide so everyone in the band knows where they are. But that bit wasn't done. There wasn't vocal lines. There wasn't really vocal melodies. It was purely instrumentation that then had the vocals layered on once this thing. And that's you've got to be good.
It reminds me of, we talked about Mike Patton last week.
Yeah, very
about
similar. Actually,
coming in and the album being done, and you having to write the the lyrics and the melody for these songs.
And that bit where they're sort of like, oh, can you just make that bit longer? So
no,
that's it.
It's done, dude. Just, sort it out. We'll be in the pub. Tell us when you're ready. But yeah, you're right. The genius of being able to do that, I just think is incredible. It really is. And the band to be able to go and do that without the vocal track, that rough vocal track to work to, absolutely incredible. It's what's
the fear in the band where you say, oh no, there's no, we're not going to do a guide vocal for this. You just need to know where you are.
It's the drummer.
It's hard.
The drummer's no idea what's going on most of the time. What city are we in? What songs? What are we doing? What's happening?
Shall we play that interview then?
Yeah, let's do it.
This is the last interview for one, and then we'll talk about it next week.
Sleepy bedtime. Are we definitely going to do Prodigy?
Are we?
I don't know. Let's go on with it.
It had been said that at this house, which is in Hampshire, the Fleetwood Mac had rehearsed there, not recorded, but they'd rehearsed there. So that ticked box number one for me, that you weren't going to get neighbour problems. You know, you can make sort of noise and not have that sort of restriction to mess it all up. So you could sort of get a flow of music going. The second thing was that that you could actually stay there. I don't know what other groups had stayed there. I don't think too many, but it did have accommodation within the main house. So that sort of ticked another box, that we could actually sort of stay there. So basically, in effect, it seemed to become like a candidate to be able to do this, to do this idea, or fulfill this idea, whereby the group would all stay in the same premises, eat there, sleep there, make music there, and then you could just bring in like an auxiliary truck, a mobile recording studio, which actually at the time happened to be the Rolling Stones one, and then sort of just get on with it, get on with the job. I think it is a fusion of all manner of ideas, but the fact of having everybody living in the same place and sleeping there, etc., and just being able to evolve all of these musical sort of concepts and deliveries, and you get something which is so extreme from say Levee Breaks, which is it's the intensity of it, the menace of it, the threat of it, is and the density and the darkness of it is to sort of turn the coin and then have something which is really caressing, like the Going to California, you know, and it's a really, really intimate close-up picture. And so these whole things were able to be accomplished within this working atmosphere. Rock and roll more or less came out of thin air, and so did the Battle of Evermore. I mean, from my side of it anyway, the mandolin, because it was written on the mandolin. There were various things that happened like that. The fact that we were routining Stairway to Heaven there, and it was tricky going through it without having any sort of sung verses to it. And while we were going through it and everyone was learning it, Robert was writing the lyrics in the same room. He was sitting down there and writing on his pad, and then he eventually came to the microphone and started singing, and it was like, wow, this is really, we're really onto something here, because his lyrics were superb on it. But it was a place that really inspired, you know, and that whole approach of having gone there to live the music, to work the music, to create the music, was the right thing to do for Led Zeppelin at that point of time. Well, it was complex, and this idea of having the, you know, fragile acoustic guitar opening it up, and then as it comes in, you've got the electric piano and the electric 12 strings in stereo, and the whole thing, it starts to unravel, and the layers start to unravel as it goes on. And there's a momentum to Stairway as well. It's all really intentional to have this, and actually from the first point of the opening guitar to what's going on at the end of it, in the last verse, or verses, you have Robert you know, singing at the end after the solo, all that section. Well, there's an increase of tempo, you know, it's got fast. And the whole object of the exercise to have this thing that would almost be like an orgasm, really. Each and every one of us in the band instinctively knew you couldn't fail to know that the work that we'd done, because we were such fine musicians, all of us, in the blend, and it was substantial work.
And I think that's the bit that got my goat earlier about the idea of the press not appreciating the graft, and the ability and the skill of these musicians.
Yeah,
they just saw the rock star and the telly being thrown out the window, and the drugs.
I think what they saw was a bunch of lads that they were not giving the press the respect that they felt that they deserved, and it wasn't from anything other than, I just don't think that they. Jimmy, I just don't think they were that kind of people. They were not the kind of people that were great with the press. You know, some people are. Some people are just so
work it
good. Paddy is a brilliant example of it. You just plonk Paddy in front of anybody on the planet, and he'll have, you know, whether they were like, you know, the lowest of the low, cleaning the floors, to the kings and queens of the planet. Paddy could have a brilliant conversation with him, right? And he would be phenomenal. Some people are just, my boss is like that. You could put them anywhere you put them on Mars and and they'd spark up a conversation and be able to interact with them and be like. But there are some people that are not. You know, there are for people that are like that and have those skills. There are people that just don't. And I think that Led Zeppelin were that. Do you know what I mean? They were not those kind of people that were great with the press. And rather than the press kind of going, do you know what? Yeah, okay, these guys are great artists and great musicians, but you know, quite clearly are not, you know, like media trained, I suppose it would be today. You know, they just, you know, it was almost this fight, you know, between, they felt that it was like the band were like, oh, the press are nothing and we don't care about them, when actually I think it was just more, they were not at ease having those kind of conversations, you know. And it would feel, you know, listening to Page particularly talking about the albums and the art and the vision, having someone asking you questions about, you know, have you just copied another band? Do you know, I totally can empathize with how that would be. It felt like a personal attack on you. So I get it, I really do. I was going to say I think it's changed, but I'm not sure it has particularly. But
no,
is what it is.
But
I it's interesting. I do think they're a band that the media seems to remember better now. Like the press today has a far fonder relationship with Led Zeppelin than they ever did back in the 70s, which is bonkers, isn't it? Absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, for sure. Right, I think that's us.
Are we done? So we need to
Fat of the Land.
We did say Fat of the Land, didn't we? I mean, how jarring is that, coming from the back of the 70s to the 90s dance? They're another band that are not particularly genre friendly, the Prodigy. No. They're kind of crossovery, aren't they? Yeah. Are they crossovery? They are a bit.
They certainly at that era they were.
Because the Jilted generation wasn't so much, was it? Jilted was proper dance bangers.
It was the aftermath of the rave, the acid house scene. This was trip hop. This was that kind of thing.
Everybody loved Fat of the Land.
Yeah,
like metalheads loved it.
Exactly.
We all absolutely fell in love with this. I mean, I would listen to Slayer, Metallica, Megadeth, Prodigy.
Yeah,
and I remember going to I was at Reading, and I'm trying to think who. Guns N' Roses played their first gig in the UK for like 20 years or whatever, and Prodigy were on the same bill, but it was like Puddle of Mud, and there's a bunch of kind of alt rock bands were playing, and then Prodigy, and then, do you know what I mean? And then Slipknot played,
but it still fit.
Just crazy, isn't it? There are so few bands, I think, that manage to.
I think because you tend to find with the dance lot, it's one or two people.
Yeah.
And then Prodigy was a band.
Yeah.
There was a load of them.
Was the tone, I think the tone of their music was guitar-y, wasn't it? They had that kind of, guitar is the wrong description of it, but it had that edge, that kind of distorted edge to it. Diane Antwoord, do you remember when they did Download and all the metalheads lost their mind? Rubbish dance band.
Yeah.
I think it's bonkers how, because that's the reaction you get, right? They're like, they're not metal. So the metal crew they're famously not, territorial, if you like. They're very territorial about, they're not metal, I'm not listening to them kind of thing. With the Prodigy, we just accepted.
Yeah.
And I looking back at it, I don't understand how or why.
No.
Maybe it was the image.
It's a lot to do with the show.
Yeah.
And a lot to do with
that
the show,
kind
the
of
energy
bad
of the show.
Yeah, that kind of, it's a weird one. I'm looking forward to digging in. I don't know much. I know the album really well.
Yeah.
I know Liam Howell. I've actually watched a few documentaries about Liam.
Very clever man.
He's awesome. I watched one. I watched a documentary on him learning how to race bikes. I'm eager to find that, if it's on YouTube still, because that was awesome. But I don't know much about the production. I don't know where it was made. I don't know who was involved.
I get the impression it was very homegrown.
You'd have thought so.
And it was very, because they were Essex boys, weren't they? Braintree.
Yeah.
I'd expect it was very much Liam's the mastermind, if you like.
Yeah.
And then the other guys have got their kind of roles to play the character thing. So it's almost like
who dances? Somebody's credited on the album as a dancer.
It's not Keith Flint, is it?
I don't know. I'll have to go back.
I know he was vocals later, but I think in the early days, I'm sure he was just a dancer.
Yeah, I don't know. And then, but they influenced a whole bunch of bands after, right? Oh God, who did Propane Nightmare and I'm looking forward to this one. This is going to be really cool. I listened to the album through this week.
Yeah.
On the CD, I've still got the original CD.
Yeah.
And it kicks.
It's a great record.
It's got a real slam to the production.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I remember playing Quake 3 online on a modem, on a dial-up modem, with this in my headphones.
Yeah.
And that, back in the days of MP3s.
Yeah.
I bet the MP3s I listened to came off the same CD that I listened to this week. Oh, so cool. So cool. Anyway, I think are we done rambling?
We're done rambling. See you later.
Yeah, I was going to say something, but I don't know what I was going to say now. Shall we just...
Let's just go.
We should come up with... I listened to some more podcasts this week.
Sign off.
People have got a sign off, and they do like a closing. Thanks for thank you, listeners, for enjoying another podcast with us. Thank you for spending your time.
We haven't got that, have we? Because we've got Monster Shop or Monster. We've got all that. That's the thing.
You've mastered that, haven't you?
Yeah.
We need like a Jack Anori kind of voiceover. You know what I mean? Just like this is what we learned.
Yeah.
What did we learn?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Jimmy Page and Robert Plant are dead sound.
Dead good, aren't they?
Yeah.
Dead good.
Yeah.
I wonder how many other people produced their own albums in the 70s. Was that a common thing?
I doubt it. I very much doubt it.
I feel the need to go and check that out.
Yeah.
But it's been good. I've enjoyed this
about
Led Zeppelin. Again, a band I discovered way after. Really enjoyed it. And it's been really cool to dig into how the album was made and all that stuff. And I'm excited for the Prodigy next.
See you later.
See you.